Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our Empire Masterclass as we continue this amazing educational masterclass series, and we've got a big one for you today. My name is Paul Jantz. In case you're not sure or you're joining us for the first time, we're here thanks to Professional Partners Education and our fantastic sponsors, supporters, Hall Chadwick, Profit Master Global Outsourcing, iKeep, and Lloyd's Auctions. Now, if you're joining us for the first time, welcome to PPE, or Professional Partners Education. This was a content platform built for you guys, our accounting community, on all sorts of different topics. Now, these masterclasses are all about bringing you, let's call it, non-technical aspects of learning. And I'm all about learning and make sure we can continue to educate our accounting network, our accounting community. And then I've also got, let's call it our technical / practical, which I call our Lunch and Learn series of workshops. And on the 7th of September, I think it's the 7th, I'm pretty sure it is, we're changing it around a little bit. It's a bit of a morning tea workshop that we've got as well. So that's our practical, technical that got released, I think, this morning. So hopefully you've seen the invitation for that. But if you've missed anything along the way, we do have a YouTube channel. It's Professional Partners Education. If you type that into your YouTube search, PPE TV Plus will pop up, and you'll see all of the content there. It's free of charge. It's built for you guys. It's built for our accounting community. Just subscribe, and every time a new piece of content gets put in there, you'll get a notification as well. Now, today's going to be a good one because given my experience in 24 years in the accounting industry, coaching, training accounting firms around the globe, mainly on performance improvement of top line and bottom line, I'm personally going to enjoy this because this masterclass sort of just brings in all the key things that I know. When we set up the coaching company back in 2004, it was all about process improvement, performance improvement, which led to bottom line improvement. So I'm looking forward to sharing exactly what my guest is going to take you through in this Mastering Business Processes masterclass. Gee, there's a mouthful, isn't it? So let's get into this. Again, let me introduce you to our guest. It's good that I've got him back on because it's probably been 2 or 3 years since we've had a chat, and that was a podcast chat, actually, to be honest, Stan. So it's good to have you back here in person and get everyone to see you as well. But what I've enjoyed is watching the journey of how Stan's actually created this company along the way. And what he's done, he's not only going to share he's going to teach you guys what he's done, but what he's done to create what he's done and how he's done that. So I think that's the great thing that we're going to work through over the next 55 minutes. We will have questions. So if you've got any questions for me or for our guest speaker, Stan Corner, please put them into the chat bar, put them into the Q&A. I'll be monitoring that as well. But from ATOMate, let me welcome Stan Corner. How are you?
Thanks, Paul. I am awesome. All the better for being here.
It's good to have you back.
Really excited about today. I think it was a couple of years ago. We had a similar yet quite different conversation. And as you've suggested, this is driving business growth, bottom line profitability. One of my favorite sayings, one of the most important things in business is the BRC. And that is, for anyone who's uncertain, the bottom right-hand corner of the bank statement. And one of the ways to drive that is through process delivery.
Correct. And that's the great thing that we're going to delve into very deeply. So, mate, if you're okay to share a little bit about you before we kick off, a little about you and your journey to date.
Sure. Look, I'm a little older than I look, or at least I hope I'm a bit older than I look. So look, my background is in business. If I go right back to the start, it's in sales. I didn't start my working career in this area. I'm a qualified chippy. Hard to believe. My father convinced me that I had to get a trade and had to finish it. But the second I finished that, I started looking for what I was passionate about, and I discovered it wasn't building. So always been in the business environment, in the sales environment. And for the past 30 years, until a few years ago, I was involved in the print IT business. I joined as a sales guy. I bought into the business financially. A few years in, I then exited that business and went out on my own. And one of the things that I discovered there, and I'm really honestly, my mates in that gig often will say, now, Stan, you went out on your own. We knew you could sell. The jury was out at whether you could run and grow a business. So I love a good challenge. So what actually happened is I then took a whole bunch of things that I'd learnt that were good and a whole bunch of things that needed to change into a new entity. And we grew that business year on year for the first 10 years at greater than 30% per year. So how did we do that? We did it through, obviously, lots of hard work, but a lot of it was driven through business processes that allow the team members to take accountability and responsibility for what they needed to achieve. It also delivered, we'll get into this much more deeply, it also delivered us the opportunity in the last 5 or 6 years of running that business to use technology to drive that to a new level. So one of the things we'll talk about, we had a little chat about this, is if you haven't got a great process at the start, it's really hard to apply technology to mayhem. Yeah.
100%. And,
Yep.
and you're right. We spoke about that offline, and, we've got our great sponsors at Profit Master Global Outsourcing here. And I think a lot of firms out there, and there could be a few firms out there listening to this now, that you're right. If you haven't got those business processes and you're looking, people are a problem at the moment where there's not enough people to service all of the work that we have out there. Good people are even harder to find. So we have no doubt we have gone to that outsource model. And again, as we spoke about offline, the ability to make sure we've got those processes right. If we haven't got those processes right, your outsourcing going to fail.
So's your insourcing, PJ.
Yeah, true, 100%.
Now, what I mean by that is staff are hard to find. And one of those top discussions, they're hard to find, they're hard to keep.
Yes.
If they don't understand what the expectations are, there's likely to be a misalignment of the outcomes and goals.
Yep.
So, we bring process back to staff retention just as much as we do to driving the bottom line.
Yeah, 100%. Now, to all you guys that are listening, again, thank you for joining us. We're going to have some interactive polls as well throughout, so we can get some feedback from you guys. So to kick off mastering business processing, what we're going to do is we're going to kick off with a quick poll. Stan, you may wish to introduce this in terms of what we're thinking in terms of the spare hours.
Yeah, so I'll often do this in a round table session where I'll pitch that I've got a magic wand, and to everyone on the call today, if I could wave that magic wand and give you personally 10 hours per week back in your work week, so this is a business question, what would you do with it? Because I think one of the key questions that I like to drive here is, if you know what you want to do with it, then you have a plan. And if that plan is in place, then it's executable. So it's interesting. I'm watching the numbers coming in this poll, and work on process improvement to increase productivity is a clear winner. Pretty closely followed by, I want to grow my business and my profitability. So it is an interesting question, and I believe it's one that we as business owners should be asking ourselves all the time. So I also, I've got to slot this in somewhere, and I reckon I'm going to do it now. My golden rule number one, and most that are on here are accounting practices and probably financial management firms, is this: you are a business first. Rule number one, you're a business first, you're an accounting practice second, or a financial planning firm second. If you apply that, both you, your team, and your clients will benefit pretty well from that.
100%. And look, we're gonna get into that a bit of detail. So let's kick off with, while the poll is still on it, it looks like we've ended that, so I will end that, which is great.
Yep.
Let's kick off with, what is business processing? So let's get back to the basics, because we've got all sorts of different firms that are on here. It's probably a loaded one in terms of what is business processing, and then given your experience, if you can get this right, where is the biggest benefit?
Well, I think it's a great question, probably challenging to answer very succinctly in the amount of time we've got. What I will say is, everything we do every day is part of our business process. The question will be, is how structured is that? how organized is it, and how measurable. We've all heard the saying, what's managed is measured. So for me and mine, a business process has got to be broken down into small parts, because if I ask someone what is your goal, ask a sales guy, what's your goal? It's to win the deal. Well, the problem is, if you're focused on just winning the deal, all those steps in between are missing. So you either hit the mark or you don't, and often you won't know why. So a business process is best managed in tiny chunks. Probably a good place to introduce my theory, right? It's really called review. So what I'm talking about is go take a look, eliminate, automate, and outsource. So one of the things about business processes, and I'm probably moving forward here to talk about what's one of my big tips. One of my big tips is, if you review what's happening in your business today, I guarantee you will find work that is being undertaken that adds no value to the business, no value to the team member, and sure as hell no value to the client. So the obvious question, if you're not asking it today, is, why do we keep doing that? So I'll go back into my history. My print and IT business, over many years, we'd introduced processes. So we've involved the team. They were written processes. We had back in the bad old days, we had a manila folder this thick. Everyone had a copy of it, and everyone was responsible for keeping that up to date. So over a fair amount of time, we'd implemented in a lot of parts of my business process, then automation. In my admin team, we had a lot of process, but no automation. So this is really interesting, because everyone on this call's got an admin team. So I'll go back and tell a story, and this is real. This happened. I stepped out of my office. I went to my reception at front of house to ask my receptionist a question. And when I arrived, I found Megs at the front desk. She was keying an email while simultaneously talking to another client on the phone. So one might suggest that's great multitasking. So what happened is, I patiently waited until she was off the phone. And I said, "Hey, Megs, that's not the way we do things here. That client on the phone clearly knew you were not present in that call. So we can't do it that way." So here's her response. "Stan, if I don't multitask, I don't get my work done. You're unhappy, and I go home late, and you're even unhappier." So I went back to my office with the tail between my legs, closed the door, and had a little long, hard think. What I worked out is I needed to review how things were working. So we then undertook a deep dive into how our admin team worked. Over 90 days, so it took some time, we went through our process of review and eliminate with the thought to automate. We went from Megan telling me to get back to my office and behave myself, to Megan standing at my door asking for more work. How did we achieve that? First things first, we eliminated the things that she was doing that no longer added value. And it blows my mind. We found in more than one occasion, we had different team members producing the same report from the same data and storing it at a different location that no one ever looked at from the second they completed the reporting. Why were they doing it? Because it's part of the process, but we hadn't reviewed it. Why were we doing it? Because it's what we've always done. So you've got to have the process, but you need this continual review of the process to ensure that it is actually delivering to the business. Oh, you're on mute there, mate. Yep.
There you go. I didn't even know.
Yep.
I hit
Yep.
mute. But we've got Chris Morris has put his hand up as well. We'll take any questions you've got, mate. If you've got any questions, throw them into the Q&A if you like, Chris. Where was I going with that? When we were talking about, let's say you just went through that eliminate, automate, outsource, and we were talking about the review to eliminate. How did you work out what you wanted to eliminate? Was it based on cost? Was it based on it wasn't used? Was it based on double handling? What was your thought process there?
Look, all of those things apply. I think probably one of the important things here, it wasn't me that determined we needed to eliminate, it was the team. So when we looked at the process and we started asking the team about what they thought was not productive, they knew about these things that they're doing they didn't believe added value.
Okay.
So we just need to confirm, did it or didn't it? Now, eliminate is the first part of the journey. It is about, if you eliminate some work, you then give your team clear headspace to look at a further review and then delivering greater value. And that is probably through using some tools to automate highly monotonous, dull, repetitive tasks. So, I think one of the things we do is in business is we focus on trying to improve the productivity. One of the questions is, should we be considering looking and reviewing the unproductive work? It's a different viewpoint, right? Two sides to every coin.
Absolutely. I was actually only talking to someone about this maybe yesterday. Some rings a bell about, someone was asking me about, particularly about what we did focus on. It's like, again, we can always look at the time spent on jobs or the recoverability of a job and chargeability of a job. And there's all of these sort of things that we tend to measure, but, we sort of don't, this bucket that goes into that non-billable time, non-chargeable time that gets written off to admin. And we know that, team members become quite clever at putting it to admin as well. That's never time that you can recover, is there? So there's a real good way to look at that in a greater layer of detail and again, it brings in a totally different mindset of how that's going to work, isn't there?
Yeah, look, and you mentioned timesheet. I more commonly refer them to them as lie sheet. So another idea that throws into there is, particularly in accounting firms, admin. We tend to throw time against admin that's not billable. So why is admin's time less valuable than a fee earner's time? I can't see why it is. So one of the concepts I've talked a little bit about recently is give admin some billable work and just watch their self-value grow. So I think PJ, we got a bit off track there, because I tend to do, as I suggest, running by the seat of my pants. So if we bring it around to that, understanding the process, first of all, it's time consuming. Second of all, it needs support, 100% support from leadership.
Yep. If
you're asking your team to complete this review and you are not committed to it, I can promise it will fail.
Yep.
Some of the challenges are you'll have some people that may fight the review. I've seen that. My friend Megan, my receptionist, she wasn't very keen on it to start with because she was afraid of what this might deliver to her. So there's some pitfalls. But in today's world, and that's 7 or 8 years ago, in today's world, I think most of our people understand what the opportunity of tech and automation can do. Now, in today's world, the cat's cry of AI, right? I love it. It's probably a bit over-talked, but I think everyone is now accepting of the fact that this technology allows us to do the very things that bots, AI can't do. It's the human stuff. So I think that if we go right back and go, what would we do with our 10 hours? So the two results were twofold. I'd grow my business. I'd work on process improvement. For me and mine, if you're already busy, the first is where you've got to start, because if you grow the business and you don't have the processes in place to support that growth, that results in pretty significant pain.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. That was one of the things that I spoke about last night I was on a presentation last night, and exactly that I spoke about that. So you've got to make sure that your systems, and I think this sort of leads into the next sort of challenge, I suppose, because not a lot of people like change. We tend to like habits. So,
Correct.
but nowadays we're forced to change to a certain degree because of lack of people, and definitely a lack of good people. So therefore, to bring in that automation side, I suppose, and the ability to automate, you've got to have better systems in place. So, it probably leads into our next poll, to be fair. So what I'll do is I'll throw to this one, and you can talk about this one. This is
Sure.
about one of the comments you spoke about, which was around retention.
Excellent. All righty.
This
So
one.
let's get that poll up. Yeah, righto. So staff retention. So this is really interesting, right? So I think this is easy to answer. And this is, are we concerned about it? No, no concerns at all. I have problems or I don't have problems. Staff retention is a concern for everyone. One of the key points here, and I think this is about the process, it's about having those expectations set to ensure alignment. One of the things I see when I start talking to teams is there's, I don't know, PJ, whether you've ever done that, the black hat, green hat, white hat exercise. So your black hat is where you talk about what the problems and the roadblocks are. Now you do this with your team. We undertook this recently, and what we discovered is that the team is well and truly aligned with management about where our challenges and opportunities are. So the wonderful thing about this is if your team understands where the challenges are, they're aligned. I've done the same exercise with teams where management is thinking things are rosy. The team starts putting these challenges up and they're blindsided. Now, how does that relate back to what we're talking about is to the 57% of people in that poll that have got a concern with staff retention.
Yep.
If you've got a misalignment with what you're expecting and what they're expecting, there's challenges. Yep. Now, that misalignment in today's world is even more challenging. The work from home debate, or the return to office. I think there's a new acronym for getting people back to the office. This adds another layer of that retention challenge and proposition. Okay. One of the ways I think, we in our business, we run what we call an office first policy, flexibility to work at home, but we know the value of being in the office together and that collaboration. I think part of that is because as people, we crave people. So if I then bring that into the process discussion, if I'm coming to work every day to put my head down and do highly repetitive, mind-numbingly boring work, that's not particularly engaging. It doesn't allow me to do what people do, which is do the people stuff.
Yes.
So one of the ways to drive retention is to take away some of those things that don't add value and then automate those things that are automatable through looking at those highly repetitive tasks. So it's interesting what we do. We've seen a new phenomena come to light. So we run around about 40 one-to-one discovery meetings each week with practices. And, we always ask this question, why here? Well, it's interesting. This new thing that's come up is I've just hired a new admin person or a manager, and part of their criteria was our tech stack. Yeah. Which is interesting because what we're seeing here as part of staff retention or gaining new staff is the staff are coming in and saying, I won't do things the way they used to be done. I'm not interested in doing the grunt work. I want to do work that is engaging and rewarding. So, it's interesting. 23% are saying I have no concerns about staff retention. Gee, I hope you're right, folks. I don't want to put the kibosh on you, but I think it's a concern for everybody. Now we've got 18% with a problem. I suggest those 18% are currently in the hunt for staff today. So one of the things that as you're recruiting and talking to new team members, I think you need to be talking around how do we operate here. It's not just what our culture is, and we're all nice people and we're respectful, but our culture as an organization that drives job satisfaction. And I might be a bit old. I apologise to any Gen Ys. That's not about table tennis tables, massages, and Friday afternoons off. That might help, but it's about what we do day in, day out, every hour, every minute that we're in the work environment.
Now, I know you touched on this before, so maybe if you can go into a little bit more detail about the rules you have for treating an accounting firm like a business. Tell us about.
Oh, look, I think to be able to serve our clients, no matter who we are, the client must be the center of our universe. But most importantly, if we have lack of profitability, we can't serve our clients. So, business rule number 1, BRC, bottom right-hand corner has got to be black. If we are undervaluing the services that we provide to our clients, it's very difficult to provide valuable services. Yep. So what I'm talking about here is you've got to charge fair price.
Yep.
If you look at that as the next level of business first, is you need to treat your team members with respect, 100%. You need them to get the work done, but you also need to set expectations that they will deliver those value outcomes to your clients. So as a business first is an inward look versus the alternate to this, which is rule number 2, your customers will be the center of your universe no matter what. But if you have no money in the bank, it's not possible to have your clients as the center of your universe, because you're really trying to scrape around and find some cash to, feed the children or whatever that you need to do. Centrally, it comes back to internal review of your processes, how you're doing, what you're doing, talk your staff, find those areas of non-productivity, and ask your team where the value sits.
Yep, well done. And look, we did this recently with a firm up in Brizzy as well, and the value that came from getting the team input was invaluable. And then they were sent away as teams to actually work on the next stage. Where do you want that to be improved? And we broke that down and broke that down and broke that down. That gave us almost like a 90-day rolling plan, which is what my mindset has always been about. Break it down to bite-sized chunks and let everyone go away, report back. There's no right wrongs, but you're coming back to the team and telling everyone what you found, and this is what you're recommending.
Correct. One tip I'd give there is, if you're going to run those workshops as businesses and practices, get an external facilitator. I've tried and failed to run those sessions internally, and management, while they should be there, should not participate in the black hat, green hat, white hat, because your team will take the lead from you if you start raising ideas and topics. So certainly ask your clients. They're gonna your team. They're gonna know what your clients want and need, because they talk to them every day, and ask them what they want and need. The last tip on that is you've got to deliver. If you don't execute,
spot on.
Now, I will add, you don't have to deliver everything, because there will be some daft ideas. There'll be some wish list that's not commercially viable. However, you need to deliver on the things that are deliverable. If you're listening, we do this annually, you'll go away with some stark realities that when you're sitting in your lunchbox with your mirror surrounding you, you can't see.
100%. And look, to give, again, a bit of detail around what the end of the session was with the firm in Brisbane that we ran, the team actually came and said, it'd be great to do a follow-up session every 90 days. Now, I'd already put the 90 days into their brain, but the idea was, and I said, fantastic. That's exactly what we should do, because we can review what we said we were going to do, and then we can set the next 90 days. So what's the value in 90, 90, 90, 90, and then you've obviously, hopefully, achieved quite a bit.
Yeah, look, I agree wholeheartedly. One of the key points is, back in the bad old days, everyone talked about the 5-year business plan.
Yeah.
I don't bet anyone here, but 5 years is too far away. Yes, you've got to have a 5-year vision, 3 to 5 year vision, but your business plan is over the next 12 to 18 months. And 90-day rolling plan's awesome.
I'd agree. But masterclass it is. Let's talk through. I know you've got a statement that I've heard quite a few times. Does it add value to your business? So tell me about the does it add value to the business series of questions.
Yeah, so the add value to the business is more than just about the net return. Now, let's be clear before I go any further. The elimination thing, you can't eliminate everything. There's things you must do as a business, regardless of what industry you're in. If you're an accountant or financial planner, there's must-dos because they're compliance. The adding value to the business could be increased productivity. It could be reduced unproductivity. It could be feeling great about what we do. So it could be feel good. It could deliver value to the team, but not necessarily the business. So it is an open-ended picture. And I don't think there's a direct formula to go line up your A, Bs and Cs. I think this is part of that. I mentioned earlier, leadership has got to be committed and involved. And probably one thing I didn't say, they've got to be open to allowing your team to do stuff. One of the beautiful things about having a process is, I think going back here a bit, I showed someone through my print business a number of years ago, and he was a business coach. And he said, why'd you put all these processes in place? I said, because the staff know what is expected. It delivers a consistent outcome to the client experience and the staff experience. He said, yep, that's all pretty good. Pardon the French, but he said, that's a bit of BS, Stan. Okay. So he asked me again a couple of times. I gave him some different answers. He said, one of the things that is here, Stan, is you are a bit of a control freak. This is a measure for you to understand what's happening in the business and only become involved where it's required. So most people on this call that are business owners, I'm going to suggest have got a bit of control freak in them, because you need that to be successful, right? So how do you manage that while enabling your team to perform? And one of those is that business process adds the value to allow you as a business owner to work on the business, not necessarily get in and annoy the hell out of your people on minor tasking that they're very capable of managing.
No, it's very true. It's very true. And I suppose, look, this is probably, again, going down this road of, and I spoke about before, I suppose, in my coaching capacity and certainly working with a lot of firms, we worked pretty hard on that process improvement, productivity improvement, which my statistics showed well in advance that it was going to be leading to profit improvement. Although automation has become a massive changer in all of this now, because there's the last few years, and we're going to talk about tech very soon, and you spoke about tech stacks just before, and you've just obviously Xerocon was last week, so you can imagine the amount of tech providers that were at that particular conference. Although, are you okay to talk about the productivity improvement, which includes automation, and how that sort of fitted in over the last few years?
Yeah, look, I think I want to say, to start with, that this having tech for the sake of tech, it makes no sense, right? We often see lots of businesses that have bought tech and they don't use it. There's probably a couple of reasons why. Is they weren't committed, they thought it was a good idea, and they failed to execute the implementation. I think tech has this capability of providing net returns. Remind me to come back to talking around a little story. I went rowing with a mate last night. He's a builder, and he's asking about tech for safety, and he was moaning about cost. And when I explained the real cost, he went, "Oh yeah, I think you're right." Anyway, so I think the automation can certainly improve your revenues and your bottom line, but I think the biggest thing it improves is your staff engagement and retention. it allows people to actually spend time talking to your clients. So a good example in what we do, I'll often talk to an accounting practice and they'll talk about the cost of implementing our tech. And I go, well, here's the thing. If you had 10 hours a week to talk to your clients, not about a problem they've experienced, but helping them grow their business, what does that do to adding value to your relationship? Now, that automatically adds value, because I don't know about anyone else here, but I know our clients want to pay us for what they see value in. They're not interested in paying us for stuff they see as basic. So, you know, are they going to pay us for sending them a notice of assessment? Never. But if you can take that time and turn it into proactive, helping them build their business, pay less tax, whatever that happens to be, then that's a value add that then allows you to ensure that you are charging an appropriate fee and adds black to the BRC.
Yep. Couldn't agree more. And that's the great part about what it can do. But I suppose this is where a lot of different firms, and I know we've been working with firms over the last few years, have come up with this. Again, you can look at certain, this is where that eliminate type of process that you spoke about before, where we've got so many, we're paying subscriptions. It's a bit like at home now. We've got, think about all the streaming subscriptions we've got. So we're paying these subscriptions. Are they adding value? And that was one of the key things that you spoke about before, in terms of just keep asking yourself that question, keep asking the team to say, is it adding value to the business?
Yeah. And don't do it once and forget it. So I talk about, so I want to talk about another phenomena that happens in business that we're very process driven. I call it the unofficial drift. So let's talk about a process that says at midday every day, Harry walks over to the red button on the wall and pushes that button. Now, why does he push the button? Well, it doesn't quite matter, but that's the process. So at 12:01, so, you know, first week it's 12 on the dot, which is what the process is. At 12:01, in 2 weeks' time, it doesn't matter. At 12:05 in 3 weeks, it doesn't matter. Now, there's probably a chance someone in the business and organization is seeing a variance because we've drifted from the process. When old Harry starts pushing that button at 12:15, what's actually happened is the water tank outside's overflowed. It's flooded every car in the car park, and now we have a catastrophe. So one of the things about process is about not just reviewing, is this process working? Is it being used? So if you see the process not working, there's only two reasons. One, you need to adjust the process, or two, unofficial drift is kicked in and the process works, but we're not applying it. So this is not a set up a process and move on for the rest of our lives.
A very, very good point. And that's the great part about setting up a process and making sure you're giving the team, if the best way to describe, even if I took you into the situation of a couple of weeks or a few weeks ago up in Brisbane, if the team are putting the process together and then monitoring that, get them to continue to review it. Again, think about from a leader's point of view, a partner's point of view, a director's point of view. That's one less thing that you need to do and you need to control, as you mentioned before, but get the team to take ownership of it. And there's nothing better than, when I've run sessions with teams, the ability for, to take ownership of things, to be enabled to take ownership, is quite incredible. And you'll see them take another step in their careers.
As long as there's something in it for them.
Yeah, 100%.
As leaders, if we fail to share what's in it for them, it's unlikely that they'll buy into the process. So again, we go back to that unofficial drift. Remember when we put in this process for servicing devices called a TQC, total quality call. Well, it worked, delivered great productivity, better uptime, and then it stopped working. And when I called the team together that was using this process, we talked about what was in it for them. And one of them said to me, Stan, you promised that you would measure our performance to the process, and you're not.
Interesting.
Now, for me, that was a light bulb moment, because as a leader, I put this process in place and just expected it to stay at 12 o'clock, right? But the unofficial drift, half the team didn't know they drifted away from it. That measurement Doesn't need to be leadership, but that measurement to make sure that it's being worked and it still is fit for purpose is incredibly important. One of the tips, folks, when you develop a process, the people who write it cannot test it. Give it to someone who has no involvement in the process. If they can't complete the process from the written process or the guide is not strong enough.
So whoever's written it, make sure someone else tests it.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like it. Like it.
Again, I'll go back to one of my golden rules. If the process is not written, it's not a process.
Mm.
Yep. So it's in our organization, we write what we do and we do what we write.
Okay.
Or convert it around, we say what we do and we do what we say, which is a really important part to delivering to your client and your team.
Okay. Let's talk tech. Let's work out, again, our next little poll for everyone online in terms of just adopting tech. Let me just launch this.
Yeah, so look,
in this,
look, anyone who's not adopting tech, I believe is in serious trouble. A really good, one of my mentors in business over many years said to me at a financial management course that he didn't need to be at, by the way, because let's just say his wealth was substantive. What he said to me is this: there's only one way to coast. It's always downhill and it's always backwards, and it's a very dangerous activity. So in today's world, if you're not implementing tech and continuing to implement tech to improve the way that you operate, golden rule number one as a business, I'm going to suggest you're coasting, and it's a dangerous activity. So, the poll's interesting. It says 36% says we think we're doing well. 32% say that where are we? Are okay.
We're okay.
32% saying better. I'm really pleased to see no one has any interest. Although that said, I'm kind of suggesting anyone who has no interest in tech is probably not on this call.
Very true.
Yeah. So
we're using tech.
Yeah, and while this discussion is really around process, the automation is a key to this, right? If we look at my strategy, that review and eliminate is about one thing and one thing only, and it's finding the time and opportunity headspace to work out what tech will deliver greater productivity, staff satisfaction onto the client, bottom right-hand corner.
And that's what's been great about even, you look at the poll of, let's say it's crept up to 40% as being good and 32% being okay and 28% being we need to do better. Although the great part about how we've evolved, certainly as businesses and people, I think, we're creeping up again there. There's the younger generation come through that is more like, I'd hate to think, my eldest is 13, but they're all over it. It's not something that we grew up with, but they're growing up with it. So it is interesting that how it will change moving forward and driven a lot by the team, which again, I love what teams are doing. Sorry, what firms are doing with their teams and empowering them to go to places like XeroCon, and you have a look at the younger people that are walking around and just, how is that going to help? How is that going to improve? What could I use that for? And listening to the conversations were fantastic.
Your kids and my kids are native technology kids, right? Everyone on this call that's got kids under the age of 18, what did we give them when they were grumpy? We gave them an iPhone or an iPad, right? I remember that, my youngest, who's just about to turn 15, TV was down low. She's a toddler, couldn't speak. And we go into the front room and she's having an absolute crack attack because she's on the TV and she's swiping the screen and it wouldn't change channel. This is an 18-month-old, 2-year-old, right? So these are native to technology. They don't see, they can't see a world where tech is not just a part of it. So for us on the call of the other end, I'm almost all grey, so that gives you a bit of a hint. We came through the time where technology, we had to learn it. Our children, it is native to them. They don't see this as different. It's a really important part. I'm going to arc back to that staff retention. If you haven't got good tech, you will struggle to get that generation that is the foundation of our firms, or the people in our firms today. And I go back to, again, we have people jump on a discovery call with us to talk about our solution when we ask why, because new team members said, I ain't coming if you ain't got it.
Very true.
Yeah.
And that's the great part about what this new generation of team members is providing a lot of firms, is that they're providing, I know firms that have set up teams specifically just to continually review the tech stacks that are out there. The term tech stack's been around for a while, but it's true. It's about that one working with that one, and that one working with that one, and that one working with that one. And also them going to different sort of groups and asking other firms, what's working in your firm? Oh, we've got that one. So what does it do? Tell me what that does. And then going back to the group and saying, well, I was just chatting to the guys that I was with uni with, and now they're suggesting that we should look at this.
So it's interesting, even within your own businesses, right? Two sides to a coin. We don't have to go back that far to suggest that we bring in the grads and they learn from the seniors. I'm going to flip that over and go, if you're of the senior status within a firm, go to your grads, your younger new team members, and ask them how to use the tech. They will share that with you willingly, as long as you're willing to learn. There is, I run a tech company. I'm not sure I should say this openly, but I'm challenged by some of the tech that we use. However, we've got a brilliant team of people, dare I say somewhat younger than me, that this technology just doesn't bother them. And often I'm going to them going, hey, we've got this. I'm not quite sure. I might know how to use it, but I don't know where the benefit comes from. So, we flipped the coin and said, as a senior in the organization, technically I might understand the tax compliance, but boy, oh boy, you've got a whole wealth of knowledge within your business that can help you with the tech. You just need to open your mind and probably your heart to let them show you.
So true. So true. Mate, to all of you guys that are online, if you've got any questions, we're going to look to wrap up in about 5 minutes or so, and we're going to talk about outsourcing for a second. But if you've got any questions you want to throw into the Q&A, please do so. That would be fantastic, and I'll look at those in about 5 minutes' time. Let's talk outsourcing for a second, because I know, we've been forced to move to different areas, but I also know that when you talk about it, and I think you mentioned before, you don't necessarily mean overseas. So tell me about your thought process there.
Yeah, look, I think in the accounting industry, the word outsourcing means a team offshore. And look, that's important. It is more than likely part of our journey today. But historically, over the last 25 years, I've been a great outsourcer. Now, not necessarily a team overseas. So part of that review process is looking at who is doing what in the firm. So a good example of that, you might have your admin person that is trying to manage your website. Now, best fit, no chance. It may very well be, as a tech firm, we recently outsourced our bookkeeping. Admin were doing it. Why did we outsource it? Because it's not the best use of the time. So one of the key points, and I think because we're a bit short on time, is this: when you're looking at the processes internally, not only should I get rid of it or automate it, can I outsource it and have my team doing the work that is the best fit for them? So this is a bit of the right people doing the right work at the right place at the right time. So really importantly, as an organization, we cannot have every level of expertise full-time in our business. So outsourcing that with people that can deliver those services to you is really important. Now, one of the challenges at this for those accountants in the room is money. Real important statement. When you start looking at outsourcing, you are bringing the cost of that service above the line. Currently, it's there in your business, it's below the line. So I'll go to my story about my mate who's a builder. He said to me last night, Stan, we need to do better with our safety. I want to build an app. I said, mate, you don't need to build an app. You just need to go get one that's here. And he said to me, Stan, that's going to cost me 80 grand a year. And I said, it's cheap. And he went, hey, that's 80 grand a year. I said, righto, let's do a quick summary of how it's managed now. So he gave me a quick overview. It's all paper-based. It's spread across his whole team. We spent 5 minutes. I said, what's that costing you today? He said about 300,000 a year. Right. So the difference is what he's bought in his mind is he's bought $80,000 worth of cost above the line instead of below the line that is not visible. It's a really important part of the outsourcing. And by the way, the tech discussion.
Yeah, agree. And I know there's all sorts of, again, there's a lot of firms that have moved towards, I don't know, let's use marketing as a really good example. Marketing now using experts to outsource that, not necessarily overseas, but there is overseas options as well, depending on what you want. Marketing's got so many different elements to it. So again, they're the opportunity that somebody else can do it for you. I know Chris was just online there, the guys at Vivo, and I know they've got an outsourced marketing company as an example. So, they're the guys that can create things for you that you don't have to do. And again, you're not carrying it as a full-time resource as a salary as well. So there's all different options that you can look and choose from.
The other thing here is you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah. 100%.
And these experts, they play in this space every single day, so, I go to an accountant because they know stuff I don't know. It's outsourcing, right?
Correct.
I don't insource it. So outsourcing definitely can be part of the bigger picture. So team members to complete your compliance work, but it's also about looking at the things, well, what are the things we don't have the resources or should not have the resources? Are people better focused on other activities? Oh, and by the way, often enough, you'll find things like someone managing the website or social media internally. When you go ask them, okay, how do you feel about this? There's two answers. I love it, or I'm not very good at this and it stresses me. It creates anxiety. That's not great for retention, right? Again, revolves back to how do you manage your team?
Yep, spot on. And unfortunately, a lot gets put onto that administrative staff member that they've got to do all of the above that's administrative based. But, there's different horses for courses. And I think that's, if you look back on it and you review it, like you mentioned before, you've got the ability to make maybe a different decision there.
Yeah. Don't ignore the scenario. I often find fee earners that are charging $300 or $400 an hour doing work that generates zero fees, marketing, basic rudimentary work. It could be because they don't think they can give it to others. But man, get your 10 hours back at $300 an hour, $3,000 a week, do the maths, it's a lot of time. So, we pitched in this, the discussion around automation, those 10 hours a week, if you are an accounting firm with 10 seats, there's at least a dozen automations out there that can give your firm back 10 hours a week. That 10 hours is nearly 500 hours a year. It's a lot of hours that can be applied to delivering some of those outcomes that we talked about right at the start. Time to work on process improvement or time to grow my business and grow the value of my business.
So true. So true. And that's probably, I was going to come back to that actually, because we mentioned 463 hours, whatever it was. And you've just given the classic example of the 10 hours and how that stacks up to be closer to 500 effectively. So what does that mean and this is where we've got different opportunities. The way the accounting firm will look in 2024 will look very different to it looked 20 years ago, because you've got these ability to apply these automations nowadays, which is fantastic. And that's the great part about where we're heading. Is awesome.
And it's more than likely 95 or 90 to 95% of your staff and team want you to do this. Resistance to change is melting, and it's melting fast with the change of guard in our teams.
Yep. Good point. Good point. Now, as we look to wrap up, last poll, I'm going to launch it. We can talk about it. There it goes. It goes live. You guys can put some comments in there if you like. Sorry, there's just a yes or no. And I suppose, look, any questions you've got, throw them in there. This is probably the great thing about these sort of sessions. You get to ask questions as well. So we've probably got about 3 or 4 minutes before we look to wrap up. So if you've got questions that you'd like to throw at Stan, please throw them in there. Any final comments that you'd like to share, mate, before we look to wrap up?
Look, yeah, the one last thing I'd like to say is, if you're looking at what we've talked about today, or your plans to apply my review, eliminate, automate, you don't have to climb the mountain in one leap. A set of small incremental steps will move you through this journey. You know, it's a terrible saying. I use this internally all the time. When you start your review, don't look at the bowl of apples and try and get every apple in your mouth at once, because you will choke. You know, take a bite, chew, take some time to review. It will deliver some pretty significant dividends. Anyone who wants to chat more, you'll find me on LinkedIn, as you will with PJ. It's been awesome to chat today. If anyone didn't work it out, yeah, I don't mind a yarn. And I'm very, very passionate about what we do as an organisation, but also helping organisations understand where the opportunity sits.
100%. And I think that's the great part. And that comes out, the passion that you've got. I think that's the great part about sharing that. Not only can you teach it, you've actually done it, as I mentioned earlier. So when you've done it in your own business, and you can learn, a lot of people out there listening to this can actually learn from, right. And I think your last one about just little bite-sized chunks, out of the apple, chew on it. And I think, again, Rome wasn't built in a day, but this is something that I encourage everyone to just continually look at how they can look at all the different processes they've got, empower their team to get on board, and then you will grow as a business together. And I think that's the great part. You want to grow as a business together, create a culture, and create a culture of retention as well. And someone that wants to be heard, someone that wants to be listened to. All these little factors as leaders, directors, partners in firms are so important to your team. Believe me. That's what I hear all the time. I hear it all the time if I'm running stuff. Team members tell me that. So it's important to share that as well. Yeah,
I think the last part of that community is talk to your customers.
Yeah,
there are a wealth of information about what you shouldn't do, should not do. The thing that has come to the forefront in what we do now in ATOMate is we've built this community. That community is not just our shareholders, not just our team members, but it's our customers. It's one of sharing. We grow and learn together. They're our greatest inspiration. They also kick us along a bit, of course. But it is that community or sense of community that is so valuable in today's world.
100%. Stan, thank you. Thank you for everything. Again, the ability to talk to you about this, and for you to share all of this on this masterclass. I've learned a lot. I've taken notes as well along the way, which is fantastic. And the ability for you to share your knowledge and your expertise with everyone online today has been fantastic. So thank you very much.
Thanks.
To all of you that have joined us, a massive thank you. Again, another masterclass show done and dusted. I hope you've enjoyed, again, getting into the business processing side. If you've got this you want to share with team members or anybody else for that matter, you are more than welcome to. This will be online very soon. It'll be the recording will be going to post-production, then go onto our YouTube channel probably in the next 48 hours. So it'll be on our YouTube page very, very soon. Look out for my next Lunch and Learn. So it is a morning tea. I mentioned that. So it's the 7th of September. It's at 10 a.m. And we're talking about when is an ATO repayment plan appropriate.
That's big.
It's interesting. Okay, so we'll be talking about that and maybe some of the preventative measures that are involved in that as well. Because I know that most of us go straight to an ATO plan, a repayment plan, because we can't pay our taxes. And therefore, we're going to talk about the options that are available and share something with you. So if you haven't seen that invitation, again, check out my LinkedIn page. It'll be on there, and you guys can register for that. It's free of charge.
Sorry, go, mate. crackingly good topic where we sit today, given the ATO's change in their approach to debt collection. Paul, I think this is topical and a critical discussion. So I'm going to sign up. It's awesome.
Yeah, good. Thank you, mate. Yeah, look, we'll have an expert. We've got one of the directors from Hall Chadwick talking about this because he's pretty passionate about, again, not allowing, if businesses are in financial distress, this may not be the best option. There's other options out there, and we're going to talk about that in 45 minutes. So please join us Thursday, 7th of September, 10 a.m. Otherwise, signing off till I see you next time. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks again.